All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into some excerpts from a really, really interesting book called The Anxious Generation.
Okay.
And we're really going to be focusing on this kind of core idea in the book. You know, why is it that anxiety seems to be like skyrocketing in kids these days?
Yeah.
And the book sort of frames this in this really interesting way as like a great rewiring of childhood,
Mm.
which I think is a really fascinating way to kind of think about it.
Yeah, it really is. And, a lot of what the author talks about in the book and what we're going to kind of unpack today really centers around like the impact of technology and
Right.
screens, especially social media, on like how kids' brains are actually developing.
Yeah. So
Mm.
let's talk about this great rewiring a little bit. Think back to like when we were kids.
Hmm.
How did we form friendships and connections? I mean, I know for me it was like,
Right.
hanging out at the playground after school
Yeah.
or just like playing in the neighborhood until it got dark.
Yeah. Exactly.
It was
Right.
very much like this in-person, face-to-face kind of
Yeah,
thing.
totally.
But now it seems like kids are like constantly connected online.
Mm-hmm.
And this book really makes the case that even though it seems like kids are like super connected,
Yeah.
these digital connections aren't necessarily translating into like those real deep, meaningful relationships.
Right. And it really does come down to like how these different types of interaction actually wire the brain differently.
Yeah.
Right. So like you're saying, when we were kids, so much of it was like
Oh.
face to face, learning how to read social cues,
Okay.
navigating those complex dynamics of like a group of friends. And that all takes time, right?
All
It's a
right.
slow process and it builds those like really essential empathy skills.
Yeah.
But now, you've got kids growing up in this world where so much of their interaction is through a screen
Yeah.
and they're getting those like quick hits of dopamine from likes and comments and
Mhm.
shares, but it's not the same.
Yeah. It's like their brains are being trained for
Yes.
instant gratification
Yes.
rather than like the slow burn of
Yeah,
building a
yeah,
relationship.
absolutely.
And the book also talks about like, how this shift affects like kids' self-image too, right? Because like everything online is filtered.
Curated as, yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
So how do you like develop a healthy, realistic sense of yourself
Right.
when you're constantly bombarded with
Oh,
like
exactly.
these images?
You're comparing yourself to like this
Yeah.
this like airbrushed, version of reality.
Yeah. And the book talks about, how that can be really damaging to like a child's self-esteem.
Absolutely. And it's not just about self-image, right? Like think about how we like learn to cope with stress and difficult emotions when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like we'd go outside, we'd ride our bikes, we'd talk to a friend face to face.
But we had like time and space to process
Yeah.
things, to work through
Right
them.
now, kids are just like constantly bombarded with stimulation, right? Like there's this expectation that they're always like on,
Yeah.
always connected, always responding.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine how overwhelming that must be for like a developing brain.
Right. And that kind of brings us to like this whole other section in the book about like parenting styles in the digital age and how
Hmm.
it seems like technology has really pushed parents towards using, screens as a quick fix.
Oh, total.
It's like, oh, I just need 20 minutes of peace and quiet. Here's an iPad.
Right. Just keep them occupied.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But the book warns that like this over-reliance on screens might actually be like coming at a cost.
It makes sense, right? I mean, like, think about it. You're a parent. You're juggling work and dinner and homework and all these things.
Right.
And it's so tempting to just be like, okay, here's a tablet. Just go zone out for a little bit so I can, get things done.
Exactly.
But the book really emphasizes that this constant screen time might be one of the biggest factors contributing to this rise in anxiety that we're seeing.
Yeah, it's like we're trading long-term well-being for like short-term calm.
Exactly. Yeah.
And getting back to that lack of real-world interaction that we were talking about earlier, the book really connects that to the anxiety epidemic as well.
Right.
It talks about how kids need those unstructured experiences, like
Sense.
playing outside, hanging out with friends, to
Yeah.
learn like essential social skills, to learn how to regulate their emotions and
Okay.
to just learn how to bounce back from setbacks.
Yeah, and those are things that you can't learn from a screen.
Right.
Kids need that space to be creative, to problem solve on their own, to just like interact with the world in a way that's not mediated by, a
Right.
piece of technology.
Exactly. And one of the things I found really fascinating about this book is that it doesn't just talk about the problem.
Right.
It actually gets into the science behind anxiety.
Yeah.
It explains how this constant tech overload that
Yeah.
kids are experiencing can actually overwhelm their developing brains.
Yeah, and one of the key areas that the book focuses on is the prefrontal cortex, which is like the part of your brain that's responsible for planning and decision making
Right.
and emotional regulation, and it's still developing in children and teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And what the book is saying is that this constant stimulation from technology can actually hinder that development.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just about like how much screen time kids are getting. It's about how that screen time is impacting their brain's ability to
Right.
learn how to manage stress, learn how to build those like healthy coping mechanisms.
Exactly. Exactly. And the book also goes into the amygdala, which
Yes.
is the part of the brain that processes fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
And what it says is that when a child is constantly exposed to like stressful stimuli,
Hmm.
like the pressure to be perfect online, or just
Yeah.
this constant stream of
No,
notifications,
right, right.
it can actually make the amygdala like overactive,
Hmm.
which then makes them more susceptible to anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like this really vicious cycle.
Right.
So how do we help kids navigate this? Because the anxious generation is not all doom and gloom.
No, 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 not at all.
It actually offers a lot of practical advice for
Yeah.
parents and educators.
Absolutely. And it really emphasizes the importance of setting limits on screen time, right? Like making sure that kids are getting those breaks from technology and having those opportunities for face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
And also like teaching kids how to understand and manage their emotions, like building that emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and I love how the book talks about the power of unstructured play.
Oh,
Just giving kids the freedom to explore and imagine and create without,
yes.
a screen in front of them.
Right.
It's not just about having fun. It's about giving their brains a break from that constant stimulation
Yeah.
and allowing those really crucial developmental processes to take place.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly one of the most important takeaways from the book is like
Mhm.
we need to be mindful of the environment that we're creating for children and make sure that they have those opportunities to develop those essential life skills that are going to help them thrive,
Yeah.
as they grow up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of wrap this up. We've talked about this idea of the great rewiring,
Hmm.
how technology is changing childhood and really the impact that it's having on everything from
Yeah.
parenting styles to brain development.
Yeah.
But the key takeaway here is that there are solutions, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We can help equip kids with the tools they need to navigate, this new landscape.
And here's something I was thinking about, like how might this great rewiring be affecting us as adults?
Oh, that's interesting.
Are we losing those essential skills too? Like something to think about, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's definitely something to ponder.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening who wants to explore these ideas further, we highly, highly recommend checking out The Anxious Generation.
Yes.
It's a really fantastic book.
It really is.
And I think it offers a lot of really valuable insights.
Absolutely.
So definitely check it out. You won't regret it.
You won't regret it.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.